we've gone through our picks, who we think is going to win the title, who's going to get to the final. But what about a dark horse? Give us one name to keep an eye out for at Ali Pali that could lift the title or maybe make a deep run.
Well, I think this answer everyone knows because I've said it a few times over the last couple of weeks. But I'm going to go Jim Williams, and the draw is not scaring me away from it, even though he has assuming he gets to the second round, a sort of back in form Peter Wright. I can't say Peter Wright's fully back in form off of one major that he won out of nowhere, but he's obviously playing well and confident again. And that makes Peter Wright a bit more scary than he would have been even 3 months ago. But Jim Williams has been just really, really good. Well, since coming over to the PDC, but this year in particular, of the Pro Tour qualifiers for the World Championships, he has the second highest average this year in Players' Championship events. Only Jean Van Veen is ahead of him, an average north of 95. That's excluding Matthew Dennen, who only has one match. That's the 18th highest average this year. It's significantly ahead of Peter Wright. It's ahead of many of the other top players, ahead of Michael Smith, the world number one and world champion. And that's because, well, he's been a top 16 caliber player this year. And at the last Players Championship event, he showed it. That's why he made it through to the final. That's why he beat the likes of Josh Rock, Danny Noppert, Damon Hedda, three of the not favorites for this tournament, but in that second group of players. If you were to go beyond you say here are the six players, I'll say, who are most likely, they're in that next category. And he beat all three of them en route to that final. And sure, Damon Hedda averaged south of 90 in that match, but I don't care. He still won it. And then he ran out of steam, still played okay, but ran out of steam in the final against Dave Chisnell, who's another one of those players in that second tier. And some of the other players he beat en route, Kim Huybrechts, a seeded player here. Mario van den Bogaerde, a player who is quietly been a fairly good player this year. That's the caliber of player that Jim Williams beats routinely. Jim Williams is on the verge of a breakthrough. I think next year will be his breakthrough year. I will be surprised if he doesn't qualify for most of the majors next year because he's good enough. And now that he's getting results, I think he's ready to take that next step. But the first part of that step is performing on the big television stage. And I think he's ready. He has a favorable draw in the first round against Norman Madu. We haven't seen Norman Madu on the PDC World Championship stage in 13 years, but he's played in the PDC World Championships multiple times. He's a player who's been around. He's a player who shouldn't beat Jim Williams, but can certainly string together some legs of 15, 16 darts and put Jim Williams under pressure. And I think that will pose him well heading into that match against Peter Wright. I'm not going to pick Jim Williams to beat Peter Wright, but I think he has every chance. And if he gets through that match, I think he has every chance to win some more. I think he can absolutely win a best of 7 against Barney. I think he absolutely, or Radek Sagansky, who recently won a title. I think he absolutely can win a best of 7 against either Wade or Gilding or Matt Campbell or Luke Littler or even Lawrence Iligan, who's a name that I would also have on my list if we wanted one of the international qualifiers. I think it's a very tough draw, but I think a tough draw is good for a player who is looking to then beat the seed to get battle tested. I think that gives Lawrence Iligan more of a chance than we might think and same for Matt Campbell, because they have to play each other in that first round before taking on James Wade. The winner of that will be battle tested. But I think Jim Williams is just a cut above. I think Jim Williams will be a seed here next year. I think he will be a player who will have a chance to win multiple titles next year. And I think he's a player who has every chance to make it all the way to the quarterfinals. And what is not an easy section of the draw by any stretch of the imagination. I'm going Jim Williams as my dark horse because I think he is the one unseeded player who I genuinely think is ready to break through. And if the draw opens up, go very, very deep in this tournament. So I should say the one unseeded player who we haven't all been talking about all year. There are other unseeded players like Jean Van Veen who are ready, but the one that we haven't been talking about that I think is ready. So Jim Williams is my dark horse, and I do think he has I do think he's going to lose second round, but I think he has every chance to make the quarterfinals or further.
Yeah, I like that pick for Jim Williams, someone that I've written about this week. I've done a 6 players to watch piece on the Darts Corner website, and his name was on there, and I think he's got a very good chance of beating Peter Wright if he gets to the second round with Peter Wright, someone that we saw win that European Championship, then go out early in the Grand Slam in the groups, and didn't see him in the Players Championship finals. And since then, we've not really seen anything from him. And we know he doesn't play an awful lot of exhibitions, but we're not quite sure where his game is at. But for Jim Williams, we know he has been playing to a very good level throughout the whole of 2023. But for me, looking at a dark horse, we're going to see lots of people come out with some names over the next few days. I'm pretty sure Gary Anderson is going to be tipped as a dark horse for me, a 2-time world champion, someone who's won virtually everything there is to win in the game. I'm not having him as a dark horse, and he is the 5th favourite for this tournament at 14-1. And for me, when I was looking at my dark horse, I've had to work backwards really, because my final that I've predicted it is between the 2nd and the 3rd favourites. After that, you've got the 2 semi-finalists that I'm predicting to lose out, Rob Cross and Dave Chisnall. One's won it before. Chizzy not won a major yet, but he's been very close on many occasions in the past. So I've gone back to the quarterfinals for me. And the 2 that have got the biggest odds at the moment, at the time of recording, you've got Ross Smith at 66-1, and an even larger price than that, Ryan Searle at 80-1. And I mentioned earlier I fancy Ross Smith to end Michael Smith's run as world champion in the last 16. His previous best at Ali Pali is the last 32, so that means he's going to go 2 rounds further for the former European champion. And you never know, a couple of long games, a couple of 180 fests in that run, it could be enough to lift the Ballon d'Or. So he might not leave completely empty-handed. But for my dark horse, I'm going to go Ryan Searle, 80-1 is the biggest price. And another player who, if he was to go that far, get to the quarterfinals, he would be breaking new ground as well, because his current best is the last 16. 3 of his 5 previous appearances at Ali Pali, he's got 1 round shy of the quarterfinals. He's been in and around the top 16 for the last couple of years now, a former major finalist 2 years ago. Since then, only 1 quarterfinal in the majors, and for me that's a surprise. I'm sure it is for some others too, but we've not seen the best of him at Ali Pali the last couple of years. Although he has got to a last 16 and a last 32, he's not gone out in that first game. The 6 games that he has played, there have been averages between 87 and 92, so I think he is due a good performance at Ali Pali, maybe right from the get-go in that first game, whoever he plays. But I'm looking at more recent form for Ryan Searle, and you look at his last 5 games on TV, 99 average, a 9 darter, 98 averages, 106 and a 99. And his 2 defeats in that sequence were to Luke Humphries, 10-7 on both occasions, who went on to win both of those titles. And I've said earlier, I think it is going to be Ryan Searle that does get the better of Luke Humphries in this tournament. It is going to be a potential last 16 clash between those 2, and the recent record between them doesn't make for particularly good reading for Ryan Searle. He's lost 6 of the last 7, but only 1 in those last 7 meetings has he averaged less than 98. So we know the averages, they are just a guide, but it can just come down to that timing at this high level, that 1 shot at the right time, a single double out shot like maybe a 76 or a 72 when you're getting that 1 dart at a double. And it could be even more important in this tournament when it is just the set play to get that right shot at the right time. And if Ryan Searle can get his timing, I'm going to tip him as my dark horse, not to win the whole thing. I've already made my prediction for that, but I think he is going to be the player that ends the pre-tournament favourite Luke Humphries bid for that 4th major in the last 5 events. And if he can do that, I think that's a pretty good tip for a dark horse.